Hello everyone and welcome back to Fluent English Journey. I am Scarlett, your host, and today I am very happy to share another episode of Upper Intermediate English Practice. This is your daily listening time to help you become more confident in English. If you are new here, let me remind you that we upload new episodes every day to help you improve your English listening and speaking skills. So, stay with us and listen carefully. Each story and example is made to help you speak English naturally and confidently. Today, I want to tell you a simple story about a man named Daniel. Daniel works in an office, and every morning he takes the bus to go to work. One morning, while he was waiting for the bus, he saw his neighbor, Mrs. Johnson. She was carrying many heavy grocery bags and looked very tired. Daniel wanted to help, so he said, "Let me give you a hand." This means, let me help you. He took the bags and carried them to her house. After helping her, he hurried back to the bus stop. But when he got there, the bus had already left. At first, Daniel felt sad because he missed the bus and thought he would be late for work. However, a few minutes later, another bus arrived. When Daniel got on, he saw an old university friend named Robert. They had not seen each other for many years. They started talking, sharing stories, and laughing about their old college days. Daniel was so happy to meet Robert again. This story teaches us something important. Sometimes, when things do not go as planned, something good can still happen. Missing the bus helped Daniel reconnect with his old friend. It shows that what looks like a small problem can sometimes become a blessing. Now, let us look at some useful English expressions from this story. Daniel said, "Let me give you a hand." This is a polite and friendly way to offer help. You can also say, "Do you need a hand?" or "Can I help you with that?" These are very common in daily life. For example, if you're at work and your coworker is carrying many papers, you can say, "Do you need a hand with those?" Or at home, if your husband or wife is cooking dinner, you can ask, "Do you need a hand in the kitchen?" These small phrases make your English sound natural and kind. Another good expression in Daniel's story is what he said when he met his old friend Robert. He said, "It has been ages since we last met." This means a very long time has passed. You can also say, "It has been forever," or simply, "It has been a long time." These phrases are friendly and sound more natural than just saying "long time no see." Let us see another example. A woman named Sarah once told me about her neighbor, Mr. Carter. She had not seen him for almost 10 years. One afternoon, she saw him in the park. She smiled and said, "It has been ages, Mr. Carter. How have you been?" He laughed and said, "Yes, time really flies." This short and simple conversation sounds natural and warm. You can practice saying it out loud to make your English smoother and more fluent. Now, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you met an old friend or someone you had not seen for many years? How did you start the conversation? You could say, "It has been ages. How are you doing these days?" Practicing this line can help you sound confident when you meet someone again after a long time. Before we finish, let me tell you another short story. This one is about a teacher named Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith always told his students, "Every problem has two sides. You can complain or you can learn something from it." This means that when something bad happens, you can choose to be upset or you can choose to learn from the situation. So remember, just like Daniel and Mr. Smith, every day gives us chances to learn, to help others, and to grow. Small acts of kindness and positive thinking can make a big difference in your life and in your English learning journey. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Keep practicing, keep smiling, and keep learning English with confidence. One rainy day, something unexpected happened in Mr. Smith's classroom. The ceiling started to leak, and water began dripping onto the desks. The students looked annoyed and uncomfortable. But instead of getting upset, Mr. Smith smiled and said, "Let us see this as an opportunity. Instead of sitting inside, Let us go outside under the shelter and practice our lesson with real-life examples. The students were surprised, but they followed him outside. They ended up having a wonderful lesson outdoors, listening to the sound of the rain and talking about how weather affects daily life. They enjoyed the experience so much that they remembered that lesson for many years. This story teaches us something very important. The way we respond to a situation can completely change our experience. Mr. Smith chose to see the problem not as a difficulty, but as an opportunity. Now, let us look at the word opportunity. Mr. Smith said, "Let us see this as an opportunity." This means that we can choose to find something positive even in a difficult moment. Instead of saying, "This is a problem," you can say, "This is an opportunity to learn something new." You can use this mindset in your daily life. For example, if your bus is late, instead of getting angry, you can say, "Well, it is an opportunity to read a few pages of my book." Let me tell you another story to show this attitude in action. Anna recently moved to a new city because of her job. On her first day at work, she felt nervous. Everything was unfamiliar, the office looked different, the people spoke quickly, and she did not know where anything was. Instead of staying quiet, Anna decided to take a brave step. She walked up to one of her new colleagues and said, "Hi, my name is Anna. I just joined the company today. Could you please show me around?" Her colleague, David, smiled and said, "Of course, I would be happy to." That small act of courage made Anna feel comfortable and confident. By the end of the day, she had already made 2 new friends at work. From Anna's story, notice the expression, "Could you please show me around?" This is a polite and friendly way to ask for help in English. You could also say, "Would you mind helping me?" Or, "Can you tell me how this works?" These expressions are useful in new situations at school, at work, or even in a new neighborhood. Now think about yourself. If you joined a new office, a new school, or a new group, what would you say to start a conversation? A simple line like, "Hi, I am new here. Could you help me understand how things work?" can help break the ice. The phrase "break the ice" means to start a friendly conversation with someone you do not know yet. It helps people feel more relaxed and open. Here is another short story, this time about a man named Peter. Peter loved gardening. He spent many hours planting and caring for his flowers. One day, his neighbor, Mrs. Lewis, came to visit him. By accident, she stepped on some of his plants and broke a few. Peter felt upset for a moment, but instead of getting angry, he smiled and said politely, "Accidents happen, Mrs. Lewis. Do not worry." Mrs. Lewis felt relieved and even offered to help Peter replant the flowers. Because Peter chose kind words, they became better friends. Now let us look at the useful phrase here, "Accidents happen." This short sentence is very powerful. It shows understanding, forgiveness, and kindness. Instead of blaming someone, you can simply say, "Accidents happen." For example, if someone spills tea on your table, you can say, "No problem. Accidents happen." This makes you sound calm, polite, and friendly. It also helps keep good relationships. Let me share another moment with you. My friend Clara once dropped her phone while we were walking together. She looked embarrassed, but I smiled and said, "Do not worry. Accidents happen." She laughed and felt better right away. Sometimes, simple and kind words can change someone's whole mood. Now, here is a helpful habit for improving your English. When you listen to stories like these, try to repeat the key expressions out loud. This will help you remember them and use them naturally. For example, repeat after me, "Let me give you a hand." "It has been ages." "Accidents happen." By saying them aloud, you train your mouth and your brain to think and speak in English smoothly. With regular practice, your English will sound more confident, natural, and fluent every day. Next, let us hear about a young man named Thomas. Thomas worked as a waiter in a busy restaurant. One evening, The restaurant was completely full, and the staff were running around trying to serve all the customers quickly. In the rush, Thomas accidentally brought the wrong dish to a customer named Mr. Green. Instead of getting angry or complaining loudly, Mr. Green smiled and said calmly, "I think there has been a small mistake. This is not what I ordered." Thomas immediately apologized, took the dish back, and brought the correct order. To show respect and good service, he even offered Mr. Green a free drink. Because of Mr. Green's polite and kind attitude, the situation was solved quickly and without any conflict. This story shows how using polite language can make communication smoother and more respectful. From this example, notice the useful phrase, "I think there has been a small mistake." This is an excellent and polite way to point out a problem. Instead of saying, "This is wrong," which can sound rude or direct, you can say, "I think there has been a small mistake." It shows calmness, respect, and confidence at the same time. For example, if you receive the wrong bill at a shop, you can say, "Excuse me, I think there has been a small mistake with the bill." Or, if someone gives you the wrong file at work, you could say, "I think there has been a small mistake with this document." These phrases are very natural and useful in daily English conversations. Now, let us continue with another story. This one is about Michael. Michael is an engineer who often travels for his job. One morning, he arrived at the train station, only to find that his train had been delayed for 1 hour. At first, he felt frustrated because he had an important meeting to attend. But instead of wasting time and feeling upset, he decided to make the most of his time. He took out his notebook and started writing down new ideas for his next project. By the time the train finally arrived, he had already finished half of his work. He smiled and said to himself, "Every delay can be a chance to focus." The key phrase here is make the most of your time. It means to use your time wisely and productively, even in situations you cannot control. For example, if you are waiting in a long queue at the bank, you could read a few pages of a book or review English vocabulary on your phone. Instead of saying, "This is such a waste of time," you can think, "I will make the most of this time." Now let us look at another situation. This one is about Emma. Emma is a mother of 2 children. One weekend, her family decided to go for a picnic in the park. They packed food, drinks, and games, and everyone was excited. But as soon as they arrived, it started raining heavily. The children looked disappointed. Instead of complaining, Emma smiled and said cheerfully, "Why not turn this into an indoor picnic?" The family spread their picnic blanket on the living room floor, played music, and enjoyed the food together at home. The children laughed and had just as much fun as they would have outside. This story shows a positive mindset, turning problems into opportunities. Emma's attitude helped her family stay happy even when plans changed. All right, let us keep going with another example. This time, the story is about Laura. Laura works as a nurse in a busy hospital. One afternoon, a patient's family member grew impatient and said loudly, "Why is this taking so long?" Instead of reacting defensively, Laura stayed calm and replied politely, "Thank you for your patience. We are doing everything we can to make sure the process goes smoothly." Her calm and professional tone helped reduce the tension immediately. The family member relaxed and appreciated her kind response. From this example, notice the useful phrase, "Thank you for your patience." This is a polite and positive way to acknowledge that someone has been waiting or feeling frustrated. You can use it in many situations. For example, if your friend is waiting for you while you get ready, you can say, "Thank you for your patience." If your colleague waits while you finish a report, you can say the same. Even in customer service, this phrase helps you sound polite and professional. Now let us move to our next example about Mark. Mark is a university student who works part-time at a cafe. One day, a customer ordered a cappuccino, but by mistake, Mark served a latte. The customer noticed it and said kindly, "I think there has been a small mistake. I ordered a cappuccino." Mark immediately apologized, replaced the drink, and thanked the customer for understanding. The customer smiled and said, "No worries, mistakes happen." This short exchange shows how politeness and calm communication can keep situations friendly and comfortable for everyone. From all these stories, Thomas, Michael, Emma, Laura, and Mark, we can learn some very useful English expressions for daily life. I think there has been a small mistake. Make the most of your time. Thank you for your patience. Mistakes happen. Try saying them out loud several times. Practice using them in different situations. The more you repeat and imagine real-life examples, the more natural your English will sound. Keep listening, keep repeating, and keep learning. With small, consistent practice, you will soon speak English with confidence and ease. Next, let us hear about another story. This one is about Mark, a university student who works part-time at a cafe. One busy afternoon, a customer ordered a cappuccino, but by mistake, Mark brought a latte instead. Instead of complaining rudely, the customer smiled and said politely, "Excuse me, I actually ordered a cappuccino. Could you please change it?" Mark quickly corrected the order and thanked the customer for being so polite. The key phrase here is, "Excuse me, I actually ordered." This is a very gentle and respectful way to correct someone when they have made a mistake. Instead of saying "this is wrong," which can sound unfriendly, you can say, "Excuse me, I actually ordered tea, not coffee." It makes the conversation smoother, kinder, and more natural. Now, let me tell you about Linda. Linda is a mother who is helping her son with a school project. Her son started to feel frustrated and said, "This is too difficult. I cannot do it." Linda smiled and encouraged him by saying, "Take it step by step. You will get there." Her calm words helped the boy relax. He followed her advice and, little by little, finished his project successfully. The key phrase here is "take it step by step." This is a very helpful expression in English when someone feels overwhelmed or when something seems too hard. You can say it to yourself or to others. For example, if you are learning English and feel nervous about speaking, you can say, "Take it step by step. I will improve with practice." This phrase helps you stay patient and positive. Now let us talk about Henry, a businessman who often gives presentations. One day, just before an important meeting, the projector suddenly stopped working. Everyone looked worried, but Henry stayed calm and smiled. He said, "Technology can be tricky sometimes. Let us continue without the slides." His calm attitude impressed everyone, and the presentation went well even without the projector. The phrase to notice here is "technology can be tricky." It is a soft, friendly way to talk about technical problems. You can use it when your phone freezes, when your laptop shuts down, or when the internet stops working. Instead of getting angry and saying, "This is not working," you can simply say, "Technology can be tricky." It shows patience, humor, and professionalism. Next, let me share a story about Emily. Emily loves baking cakes. One weekend, she decided to try a new recipe. But by accident, she added too much sugar. When her husband tasted the cake, he laughed and said, "It is sweeter than usual, but still delicious." Emily smiled and replied, "Next time I will be more careful." That small mistake became a fun memory instead of a problem. The useful phrase here is, "Next time I will be more careful." It shows that you accept your mistake, but also want to improve. For example, if you arrive late to a meeting, you can say, "I am sorry I was late. Next time I will be more careful with my schedule." If you forget to reply to an email, you could say, "Sorry for the delay. Next time I will be more careful to respond sooner." This phrase shows responsibility and positivity. Now, let us move on to Oliver's story. Oliver went to the post office to send a package. The line was very long, and when he finally reached the counter, the worker said, "I am sorry. The system is down right now." Oliver could have been upset after waiting so long, but instead, he smiled and replied, "I understand. I will come back later." His polite and calm response made the situation easier for both of them. The key phrase here is "I understand." It is short, but very powerful. It shows empathy and kindness. You can use it in many situations. For example, if your friend says, "I cannot meet today because I am busy," you can say, "I understand." If a coworker apologizes for being late, you can say, "I understand. It happens." This simple phrase helps build good relationships and keeps communication peaceful. Next, let us hear about Clara, who works as a tour guide. One day, while leading a group of tourists, heavy traffic delayed the bus. When they finally reached the museum, some visitors complained. Clara smiled and said, "Sometimes the journey takes longer than we expect, but now we are here and ready to enjoy it." Her positive attitude immediately changed the group's mood. Everyone relaxed and enjoyed the visit. The phrase to learn here is "longer than we expect." It is useful when talking about time or delays. For example, "The meeting took longer than we expected." "Cooking this dish takes longer than I expected." This phrase helps you describe situations politely without sounding upset. Now, let us continue with Andrew's story. Andrew is a teacher who always tries to make his lessons interesting. One day, the projector in his classroom stopped working just before an important lesson. The students started whispering and laughing. Instead of getting angry, Andrew smiled and said, "It looks like today we are going to learn the traditional way, with a whiteboard and markers." The students laughed, and the class went on smoothly. From Andrew's story, notice the mindset: staying calm, positive, and flexible when things go wrong. This is what makes communication strong and respectful in English and in life. Let's review the key expressions from today's stories. "Excuse me, I actually ordered." Take it step by step. "Technology can be tricky." Next time I will be more careful. "I understand." "Longer than we expect." Try to say them out loud a few times. Imagine real-life situations where you could use each one. This will help you sound more natural, confident, and polite in English conversations. Keep listening, keep repeating, and remember, every small step brings you closer to fluency. One day during class, a student asked Andrew, the teacher, a very difficult question. Instead of pretending to know everything, Andrew smiled and said, "That is a good question. I do not know the answer right now, but I will find out and tell you tomorrow." The student respected Andrew's honesty and felt encouraged to keep asking questions in the future. The useful phrase here is "that is a good question." It is polite and useful when you do not know the answer immediately. You can use it at work, at school, or in friendly conversations. For example, if someone asks, "Why do people celebrate this holiday?" and you are not sure, you can say, "That is a good question. I will check and let you know." Here is another story. Sophie was waiting at a pharmacy when the woman standing in front of her dropped her wallet. Sophie quickly picked it up and said, "Excuse me, I think you dropped this." The woman smiled with relief and thanked her warmly. That small act of kindness created a nice moment between two strangers. The useful phrase is "I think you dropped this." It is polite and helpful when you want to alert someone. For example, you can say, "I think you dropped your pen," or "I think you left your phone on the table." This phrase is short, simple, and very practical in everyday life. Now, let us talk about Ethan. He works in construction, and one day his team had to finish a project earlier than planned. Everyone was under pressure, but Ethan encouraged his coworkers by saying, "If we work together, we can finish this on time." His positive attitude motivated everyone, and they completed the project successfully. The phrase, "if we work together," is about teamwork and encouragement. You can use it with your friends, family, or colleagues. For example, if we work together, we can clean the house faster, or if we work together, we can solve this problem easily. Next is Hannah. She is a student preparing for exams. She felt worried because she had so many subjects to study. Her father noticed her stress and said, "Do not try to do everything at once. Focus on one subject at a time." Hannah followed his advice. She felt calmer and studied more effectively. The phrase "one at a time" means doing things slowly and carefully, step by step. For example, if you are carrying heavy boxes, you can say, "I will take them one at a time." Or when solving problems, you can say, "Let us handle these one at a time." Now let us talk about Jacob. He works in an office. One day, his manager asked him to finish a report earlier than planned. Instead of saying, "I cannot do it," Jacob replied politely, "I will do my best to finish it by then." His manager appreciated his positive attitude. Even though the task was difficult, Jacob showed effort and respect. The phrase, "I will do my best," is very polite. It shows that you are willing to try hard, even if the result is not perfect. For example, if someone asks you to cook a new dish, you can say, "I will do my best." Or if your teacher asks you to improve your writing, you can reply, "I will do my best." Now let us hear about Grace. She went to the supermarket and realized she had forgotten her wallet after the cashier had already scanned all her items. Instead of panicking, she smiled and said, "I am so sorry. I forgot my wallet. Can you please keep these items aside for me while I go home to get it?" The cashier agreed kindly, and everything was solved politely. The phrase "keep these aside" means to save something for later. You can use it in many situations. For example, when cooking, you can say, "Keep a little aside for decoration." Or at work, you can say, "Keep these papers aside until tomorrow's meeting." Now let us return to Daniel, a character we met before. One morning, he was driving to work when another car suddenly stopped in front of him. Instead of shouting or honking, Daniel took a deep breath and said to himself, "Staying calm is better than getting angry." He continued driving safely, and his day stayed peaceful. The phrase "staying calm is better than getting angry" is a good reminder for everyday life. You can use it whenever you feel upset or frustrated. For example, if your internet stops working or your computer freezes, you can remind yourself, "Staying calm is better than getting angry." Let us end with Rachel. She works as a receptionist in a hotel. One afternoon, a guest came to her desk and said, "The air conditioner in my room is not working." Rachel replied politely, "I am sorry for the inconvenience. I will send someone to fix it right away." The guest appreciated her calm and professional response, and soon the problem was solved. This story shows how kindness and polite words can make any situation easier. Whether you are helping someone, facing a problem, or learning something new, these small phrases, "That is a good question," "I think you dropped this," "If we work together," "One at a time," "I will do my best," and "Staying calm is better than getting angry," can help you communicate politely and positively every day. The phrase "I am sorry for the inconvenience" is very useful in professional situations. It shows respect when someone is facing a problem or delay. You can also use it outside of work. For example, if someone is waiting for you while you finish something, you could say, "I am sorry for the inconvenience. I will be ready soon." Now, let's hear about Alex. He recently started going to the gym. On his first day, he was not sure how to use the machines. Instead of guessing, he asked another person politely, "Excuse me, could you show me how to use this equipment?" The other person smiled, explained everything, and Alex avoided making mistakes. The phrase, "Could you show me how to," is very practical and polite. You can use it in many situations. For example, could you show me how to use this app? Or could you show me how to get to the library? It's a simple and respectful way to ask for help. Here's another story about Margaret. She went shopping for clothes and found a shirt she liked, but it was too expensive. Instead of leaving, she asked the shop assistant, "Do you have any discounts on this item?" To her surprise, the assistant said yes, and she bought the shirt at a lower price. The phrase, "Do you have any discounts?" is very useful when shopping. You can also say, "Is there a sale on this?" Or, "Do you have any offers today?" These are polite and common expressions you can use in real life when buying things. Now, let's talk about Tom. He works as a delivery driver. One day, his van broke down while he was on his way to deliver a package. He immediately called his boss and said, "My van has broken down, but I will find another way to complete the delivery." His boss appreciated his honesty and positive attitude. The key phrase is broken down. It's used when vehicles or machines stop working. For example, "My car broke down on the way to work," or "The washing machine has broken down." This is a very common phrase in daily English. Next is Lily, who teaches English to young children. One day, a student accidentally spilled water on his book and looked upset. Lily smiled and said kindly, "Don't worry. Mistakes happen. We can dry it with a tissue." The child felt comforted and returned to learning happily. The phrase, "mistakes happen," is helpful when you want to comfort someone. For example, if your friend forgets an appointment, you can say, "Don't worry. Mistakes happen." It shows kindness, patience, and understanding. Now, let's hear about Adam. He was in a business meeting when someone asked him a very difficult question. Adam took a moment to think and said calmly, "That is an interesting point. Let me think about it and get back to you." His calm and confident answer impressed everyone. The phrase, "let me get back to you," is very common in professional English. It means you will respond later, after checking or thinking about the question. For example, if a colleague asks, "Do you know the exact numbers?" you can reply, "Let me get back to you after I check." Now let's move to Clara. She was traveling by bus when a tourist asked, "Can you tell me how to get to the museum?" Clara smiled and replied, "Sure, it's just 2 stops from here. You can get off at the main square." The tourist thanked her warmly. The phrase, "Can you tell me how to get to?" is one of the most useful questions for traveling. You can also say, "Could you tell me the way to?" or "How do I get to?" These expressions are essential for asking directions politely. Now let's talk about Peter again. One weekend, he invited his neighbors for tea. After serving them, he asked politely, "Would you like some more sugar?" His neighbor replied, "Just a little, thank you." This short but polite conversation made everyone feel comfortable. The phrase, "Would you like some more?" is very useful in social situations. You can say, "Would you like some more water?" or "Would you like some more rice?" It's a friendly and polite way to offer something. Here's another story. Susan went to the bank to open a new account. The clerk asked her for some documents. Susan realized she had forgotten one paper and said, "I will bring the document tomorrow. Could you please keep my application on hold until then?" The clerk agreed politely. The phrase "on hold" means to pause something for a short time. For example, "Let's put this plan on hold until next month," or "The project is on hold because we need more information." This phrase is useful in both business and daily life. Now let's talk about James. He was invited to dinner at his colleague's house. When he arrived, he said, "Thank you for having me. Everything looks wonderful." His colleague smiled and replied, "It's our pleasure." This polite exchange created a warm and friendly atmosphere. The phrase, "Thank you for having me," is used when visiting someone's home or attending an event. For example, after a party, you could say, "Thank you for having me. I had a lovely time." It's a polite and thoughtful way to show appreciation. Finally, let's meet Hannah again. She was studying for an exam but felt very tired. Her friend noticed and said, "Take a short break. It will help you focus better." Hannah followed the advice, took a short break, and returned to her studies feeling refreshed and ready to continue. The phrase, "take a short break," is simple but powerful. It reminds you to rest your mind and body so you can work better afterward. These stories show how small, polite phrases can make a big difference in daily communication. Expressions like, "I am sorry for the inconvenience. Could you show me how to? Mistakes happen. Let me get back to you. Would you like some more? And thank you for having me," help you sound kind, respectful, and confident in English anywhere, anytime. Hannah followed her friend's advice and took a short break. After resting, she felt more focused and had more energy to continue studying. The phrase, "take a short break," is useful in many situations. For example, "Let's take a short break before continuing the meeting. I need to take a short break from my work." It's a common and natural way to talk about resting for a little while. Now, let's hear about Robert. He went to the library because he wanted a specific book. The librarian said, "I'm afraid it has already been borrowed." Robert replied politely, "Could you please reserve it for me when it's returned?" The librarian smiled and agreed, and Robert was satisfied. The phrase, "reserve it for me," is very practical. For example, at a restaurant, you can say, "Could you please reserve a table for two?" At the library, you can say, "Can you reserve this book for me?" It's a polite way to ask someone to save something for you. Next is Emily. She was at work when her colleague sneezed several times. Emily said kindly, "Bless you. Are you feeling okay?" Her colleague smiled and said, "Thank you. I think I'm catching a cold." This short exchange showed kindness and care. The phrase, "bless you," is very common when someone sneezes. It's a cultural habit in English-speaking countries, and you can use it in both friendly and professional settings. Here's another character, Daniel. He was cooking dinner and following a recipe. It said, "add a pinch of salt." Daniel wasn't sure what that meant, so he called his wife and asked, "What does a pinch mean?" She explained, "It means a very small amount, like what you can hold between your fingers." Daniel laughed and continued cooking happily. The word pinch is useful when talking about small amounts. For example, add a pinch of sugar. Just a pinch of spice is enough. Now let's talk about Sophia. She was in a meeting when her phone suddenly rang loudly. She quickly turned it off and said, "I apologize for the interruption." Everyone nodded politely, and the meeting continued smoothly. The phrase, "I apologize for the interruption," is very polite and formal. You can use it at work, in meetings, or in class. For example, "I apologize for the interruption. May I ask a quick question?" It's a respectful way to say sorry when you disturb someone. Another example comes from Henry. He was buying train tickets. The clerk asked, "Would you like a one-way ticket or a return ticket?" Henry replied, "A return ticket, please." He learned that one-way means going to a place only, while return means going there and coming back. These phrases are essential for traveling. In American English, people often say round trip instead of return. Now imagine Lisa, who works in customer service. One day, a client said, "I'm not satisfied with this product." Lisa replied politely, "I understand your concern. Let me see how I can help you." Her calm and respectful tone helped solve the problem quickly. The phrase, "I understand your concern," is very polite and shows empathy. You can use it at work or even in personal situations. For example, if your partner says, "I'm worried about our expenses," you can say, "I understand your concern." Next, let's meet Mia. She was traveling by plane for the first time. When the flight attendant came by, Mia asked, "Excuse me, could you please explain how to fasten the seatbelt?" The attendant smiled and showed her patiently. Mia felt more relaxed for the rest of the flight. The phrase, "Could you please explain how to," is very useful in daily life. For example, could you please explain how to pay this bill online? Could you please explain how to use this machine? It's polite and shows respect when you need help. Now let's talk about Oliver. He was invited to speak at a conference. Before starting his talk, he said, "It is an honor to be here today." His words sounded polite and professional, and the audience appreciated his respect. The phrase, "it is an honor to be here," is often used in formal speeches, but you can also use it in smaller situations. For example, "It's an honor to be here with you." You can say it when you're invited to someone's home or a special event. Here's another example with Anna. She was late to meet her friend at a cafe. When she arrived, she said, "Thank you for waiting for me." "I'm sorry I was late." Her friend replied, "No problem. I didn't mind waiting." The phrase, "thank you for waiting," is a good way to show appreciation when someone waits for you. For example, "Thank you for waiting while I finish the call." This phrase makes your English sound polite and thoughtful. Next, let's hear about David. He went to the doctor because he was feeling unwell. After examining him, the doctor said, "You should get some rest and drink plenty of water." David followed the advice and recovered quickly. The phrase, "get some rest," is very common when talking about health. You can use it when someone is tired or sick. For example, "You look tired. You should get some rest." "I'm going to get some rest before dinner." All of these short stories teach useful and polite English expressions that you can use every day, at work, while traveling, with friends, or even at home. Phrases like, "take a short break," "reserve it for me," "bless you," "I apologize for the interruption," "I understand your concern," and "get some rest" help you sound calm, confident, and kind in English conversations. For example, "You look tired. You should get some rest." Or, "I need to get some rest before the exam tomorrow." It's simple, but very common in English. Now, let's look at Grace. She was working on a group project at school. When a classmate suggested an idea she liked, Grace said, "That's a great idea. Let's try it." Her positive attitude encouraged the group to move forward. The phrase, "that's a great idea," is very supportive. You can use it when you agree with someone's suggestion. For example, "Let's go for a walk after dinner." "That's a great idea." It shows enthusiasm and encouragement. Here's a story about Ethan. He wanted to buy a new phone but wasn't sure which one to choose. So he asked the shop assistant, "What do you recommend?" The assistant explained the options, and Ethan made a good choice. The phrase, "what do you recommend?" is useful in many situations in restaurants, shops, or even when choosing movies or books. For example, "What do you recommend from the menu?" "What book do you recommend?" Now, let's talk about Isabella. She visited her grandmother one weekend. When she arrived, she said warmly, "It's so good to see you. How have you been?" Her grandmother smiled and shared about her week. The phrase, "how have you been?" is a friendly way to ask about someone's recent life. It's often used when you haven't seen someone for a while. For example, "I haven't seen you in months. How have you been?" Next is Jack. He was at work when his manager gave him a new task. Jack replied confidently, "I'll handle it." This short phrase showed that he was responsible and ready to take action. The phrase, "I'll handle it," is powerful. You can use it in many situations. At home, "Don't worry about the dishes. I'll handle it." At work, "Leave the report to me. I'll handle it." Now, let's meet Emma. She was walking in the park when she saw a tourist looking confused. Emma walked over and asked, "Do you need any help?" The tourist smiled and said, "Yes, I'm trying to find the train station." Emma gave clear directions, and the tourist thanked her. The phrase, "Do you need any help?" is simple and kind. You can use it in daily life. For example, if someone is carrying heavy bags, you can say, "Do you need any help?" Here's another story about Lucas. He wanted to surprise his friend with a birthday gift. When the shop assistant asked, "Would you like it gift-wrapped?" Lucas replied, "Yes, please. That would be perfect." The phrase gift wrapped is useful when shopping for presents. You can also say, could you please wrap it for me? Next is Sarah. She was having dinner at a restaurant. When the waiter brought the food, she said, "This looks delicious." Her polite comment made the waiter smile. The phrase, "this looks delicious," is common when talking about food. You can also say, "This smells wonderful." "This tastes amazing." These are good ways to compliment food in English. Now let's hear about Noah. He joined a new company and wanted to introduce himself. He said, "Hi everyone, my name is Noah. I'm excited to work with you." His colleagues welcomed him warmly. The phrase, "I'm excited to work with you," is positive and professional. You can also use it in school or group projects. I'm excited to work with you on this project. Next, we have Chloe. She was at a cafe when her coffee spilled on the table. She quickly said to the waiter, "I'm so sorry, it was an accident." The waiter cleaned it up without any problem. The phrase, "it was an accident," is useful when something goes wrong unintentionally. For example, if you drop someone's pen, you can say, "I'm sorry, it was an accident." Here's another story about Benjamin. He wanted to buy train tickets, but the machine wasn't working. He asked the station staff, "Where can I buy a ticket manually?" The staff directed him to the counter. The word manually means doing something by hand without using machines. For example, I had to write the report manually because the computer was broken. Now, let's talk about Zoe. She was applying for a job. In the interview, the manager asked, "Why do you want this job?" Zoe replied, "Because I'm passionate about helping people and learning new skills." Her answer impressed the manager. The phrase, "I'm passionate about," is excellent for interviews and conversations. For example, I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about music. Next is Ryan. He was playing football with his friends. When someone made a great move, Ryan said, "Nice job." This small encouragement made everyone smile. The phrase "nice job" is a quick and friendly way to compliment someone. You can also say, "Good work. Well done." Here's a story about Sophia. She was at a bakery and wanted to buy bread. She asked the shopkeeper, "Could I have a loaf of bread, please?" The shopkeeper handed her a fresh loaf. The word loaf is used for bread. For example, I bought 2 loaves of bread yesterday. Now let's look at Daniel. He was taking a taxi. When he arrived, he told the driver, "Keep the change." The driver smiled and thanked him. The phrase "keep the change" is common when you give more money than the price and don't want the balance back. For example, if the bill is $95 and you give $100, you can say, "Keep the change." Finally, let's return to Emma. She was walking her dog in the park when she noticed a man struggling to carry several heavy boxes. Emma's story, she went over and said politely, "Would you like some help?" The man smiled and said, "Yes, thank you. That would be very kind of you." Emma helped him carry the boxes, and he was very grateful. The phrase, "Would you like some help?" is a friendly and polite way to offer assistance. You can use it in many situations. For example, "Would you like some help with your homework?" "Would you like some help carrying those bags?" Michael's story. Michael recently started learning how to cook. One day, he burned the rice. Instead of getting frustrated, he said to himself, "Mistakes are part of learning." Then he tried again and cooked it perfectly the next time. The phrase, "mistakes are part of learning," is motivating and useful in everyday life. You can say it when learning new skills such as English, cooking, or driving. It reminds you to stay positive even when things go wrong. Olivia's story. Olivia went to a friend's house for dinner. When she arrived, she noticed her friend had prepared a vegetarian meal. Olivia said politely, "Thank you for preparing this. It looks wonderful." Her friend felt appreciated, and they enjoyed the meal together. The phrase, "It looks wonderful," is a simple but effective way to compliment someone politely. You can use it for food, clothes, or even home decoration. For example, Your new sofa looks wonderful. Your painting looks wonderful. Daniel's story. Daniel was driving to work when it started raining heavily. Traffic slowed down and he felt impatient. Then he reminded himself, being patient will make the journey safer. He took a deep breath and continued calmly. The phrase, being patient will make it better or being patient will help is very useful when facing challenges. For example, being patient will help me finish this task. Being patient will solve the problem. Sarah's story. Sarah was at a bookstore and wanted a particular novel. When the shop assistant told her it was out of stock, she replied, "Could you please tell me when it will be available?" The assistant provided the information and Sarah returned later to buy the book. The phrase, "Could you please tell me when?" is practical in many situations. For example, "Could you please tell me when the next bus arrives?" "Could you please tell me when the library opens?" It is polite and effective. Jack's story. Jack was attending an online class, but his internet connection kept dropping. He sent a message to the teacher. "I'm having technical difficulties. Could you please repeat the last part?" The teacher responded kindly. The phrase, "I'm having technical difficulties," is very common for online learning or remote work. You can also say, "I'm having trouble with my computer. I'm having difficulty understanding this." Hannah's story. Hannah went to a clothing store and tried on a jacket. She asked the shop assistant, "Does this come in another color?" The assistant checked and replied, "Yes, we have it in blue and black." Hannah chose the blue one happily. The phrase, "Does this come in another color?" is very useful when shopping. You can also say, "Do you have this in a different size? Is this available in another style?" Benjamin's story. Benjamin was volunteering at a community center. A young boy asked him, "Can you teach me how to paint?" Benjamin replied, "Of course. Let's start with simple shapes first." The boy learned quickly and enjoyed the activity. The phrase, "let's start with," is helpful when giving instructions. For example, let's start with the introduction. Let's start with the first exercise. It makes your instructions clear and polite. Grace's story. Grace was attending a meeting when the manager asked her opinion about a project. Grace said, "I think we could improve this part by adding more examples." The manager appreciated her constructive feedback. The phrase, "I think we could improve," is useful when offering suggestions politely. You can also say, "I think we could try another method. I think we could explain this more clearly." Lucas's story. Lucas was cooking dinner and realized he had forgotten an important ingredient. He called his wife and said, "Could you please bring some from the store?" She replied quickly, and he continued cooking without stress. The phrase, "Could you please bring," is polite and common for making requests. For example, "Could you please bring me a glass of water?" "Could you please bring the book from the shelf?" Sophie's story. Sophie was attending a seminar. When she wanted to ask a question, she raised her hand and said, "Excuse me, may I ask something?" The speaker smiled and invited her to speak. The phrase, "May I ask something?" is polite and respectful. You can also say, "May I ask a question? May I ask for your advice?" It's suitable for professional or educational settings. Henry's story. Henry went to a restaurant and noticed that his order was slightly different from what he expected. He said politely, "Excuse me, I think there's a small mistake with my order. Could you please check?" The waiter corrected it immediately. The phrase, "I think there's a small mistake," is helpful for pointing out minor errors politely. For example, "I think there's a small mistake in this document." "I think there's a small mistake with my ticket." Emily's story. Emily wanted to surprise her husband by baking a cake. While preparing, she said to herself, "I will try my best and enjoy the process." The phrase, "I will try my best," shows determination and a positive attitude. You can use it when you face challenges or want to show commitment. For example, "I will try my best to finish the report today." "I will try my best to learn this new skill." Emily's story. When the cake was ready, her husband loved it, and Emily felt proud of herself. The phrase, I will try my best, is motivating and polite. You can use it in many situations. For example, I will try my best to finish the project. I will try my best to learn English faster. Oliver's story. Oliver went to a cafe and wanted a coffee to take away. He said politely, "Could I have a cappuccino to go, please?" The barista smiled and prepared it quickly. The phrase to go is commonly used in cafes and restaurants. For example, I'd like a sandwich to go. Can I have my food to go? It's practical for everyday life. Rachel's story. Rachel was in a grocery store and wanted to find fresh vegetables. She asked a staff member, "Excuse me, where can I find the vegetables?" The staff member showed her the correct aisle. The phrase, "where can I find," is simple and very useful. For example, where can I find the restroom? Where can I find a taxi? It helps you navigate new places politely. Michael's story. Again, Michael was attending a workshop. During a group activity, he said, "Let's divide the tasks so we can finish faster." The team agreed, and they completed the task efficiently. The phrase, "let's divide the tasks," is practical for teamwork. You can also say, "Let's divide the responsibilities." Let's divide the work evenly. It shows leadership and cooperation. Hannah's story. Hannah was reading a new book and came across an unfamiliar word. She said to herself, "I'll look it up in the dictionary." Later, she understood the meaning and remembered it for future use. The phrase, "look it up," is common in English learning. You can also say, "I'll look it up online." I need to look it up in the manual. It's useful for finding information quickly. Daniel's story. Daniel was planning a family picnic. He asked his wife, "Should we bring sandwiches or a full meal?" They decided on sandwiches because they were easier to carry. The phrase, "should we," is very useful for making suggestions. For example, should we take a taxi or walk? Should we start with this task first? It's polite and conversational. Sophia's story. Sophia went to a museum and saw an artwork she really liked. She said to the guide, "Could you please tell me more about this painting?" The guide explained the story behind it, and Sophia enjoyed the visit even more. The phrase, "could you please tell me more about," is useful for learning or asking questions politely. For example, could you please tell me more about the schedule? Could you please tell me more about this topic? Benjamin's story. Benjamin was cleaning the house and found an old photo. He said to his wife, "Look at this. Do you remember this day?" They laughed and shared memories happily. The phrase, "do you remember this day?" is helpful for starting conversations about memories. For example, do you remember our trip to the beach? Do you remember the first time we met? Chloe's story. Chloe wanted to practice English with her neighbor. She asked, "Would you like to practice English with me for a few minutes?" Her neighbor agreed, and they spoke English together every day. The phrase, "would you like to," is friendly and polite when offering or inviting someone. For example, would you like to join us for dinner? Would you like to watch a movie? Ethan's story. Ethan was walking through a crowded market when he saw an elderly woman struggling to carry her groceries. He said politely, "May I help you with these bags?" She smiled warmly and said, "Thank you. That would be wonderful." Ethan carried the bags to her car, feeling happy to help. The phrase, "may I help you with," is polite and useful in many situations. For example, "May I help you with your homework? May I help you carry that box?" It shows kindness and good manners. Mia's story. Mia was at a local bakery and wanted to order a pastry. She asked, "Could you please tell me what flavors you have today?" The shop assistant listed the options, and Mia chose a chocolate croissant. The phrase, "could you please tell me," is very practical. For example, could you please tell me the time? Could you please tell me where the nearest bus stop is? It's polite and clear. Lucas's story. Lucas was at a bookstore looking for a specific novel. He asked the shopkeeper, "Do you know if this book is available in another branch?" The shopkeeper checked the system and confirmed it. Lucas was happy to know he could still get the book. The phrase, "do you know if," is very helpful when inquiring politely. For example, do you know if the restaurant is open today? Do you know if this product is on sale? Rachel's story. Again, Rachel was attending a cooking class. When the instructor showed a complicated technique, Rachel said, "Could you please show me that step again?" The instructor explained patiently, and Rachel followed it perfectly. The phrase, "Could you please show me," is widely useful. For example, could you please show me how to send an email? Could you please show me the way to the station? It's polite and professional. Henry's story. Henry was traveling to a new city and wanted to take a taxi. He asked the driver, "Could you please take me to the central train station?" The phrase, "Could you please take me to," is polite and common when giving directions to a driver. For example, could you please take me to the airport? Could you please take me to this address? Henry's story. The driver agreed, and Henry reached his destination comfortably. The phrase, "Could you please take me to," is very practical for travel. You can also say, "Could you please bring me to the hotel? Could you please drop me off at the airport?" Olivia's story. Olivia was visiting her parents. She said, "I brought some fruits from the market for you." Her parents smiled and said, "Thank you. That's very thoughtful." The phrase, "that's very thoughtful," is useful when complimenting someone's kind actions. For example, "It's very thoughtful of you to help me. This gift is very thoughtful." Michael's story. Michael went to the library to return a book. When he realized he had forgotten his library card, he politely asked the librarian, "Could I still return it without my card?" The librarian allowed it without any problem. The phrase, "Could I still," is polite and helpful for asking permission. For example, could I still join the meeting if I'm late? Could I still submit the form today? Emma's story. Emma was at a pharmacy buying medicine for a cold. She asked, "Could you please recommend something for a mild headache?" The pharmacist suggested a suitable medicine, and Emma felt relieved. The phrase, "Could you please recommend," is widely used when seeking advice. For example, could you please recommend a good restaurant nearby? Could you please recommend a book for beginners? Daniel's story. Daniel was planning a weekend hike with friends. He said, "Let's meet at the park entrance at 8 a.m. so we can start early." His friends agreed, and everyone enjoyed the hike together. The phrase, "let's meet at," is practical for planning events. For example, let's meet at the cafe. Let's meet at the library. It's clear and polite. Sophia's story. Sophia was learning to play the guitar. When she struggled with a chord, she asked her teacher, "Could you please explain this part again?" The teacher showed her carefully, and Sophia played it correctly afterward. The phrase, "Could you please explain," is very helpful when learning. For example, could you please explain this rule? Could you please explain how this machine works? Benjamin's story. Benjamin was attending a seminar and wanted to take notes. When he missed some information, he asked the speaker politely, "Could you please repeat that point?" The speaker explained again, and Benjamin wrote it down. The phrase, "Could you please repeat," is useful in conversations and learning situations. For example, could you please repeat your email address? Could you please repeat the instructions? Chloe's story. Chloe wanted to practice speaking English with her husband. She said, "Would you like to read a short story together?" Her husband agreed, and they practiced every evening. The phrase, "Would you like to," is friendly and inviting. For example, would you like to join me for a walk? Would you like to watch a documentary? Jack's story. Jack was attending a workshop and wanted to clarify a point. He said politely, "Excuse me, could you explain that again?" The instructor smiled and provided a clearer explanation. The phrase, "Excuse me, could you," is polite and commonly used. For example, "Excuse me, could you tell me the time?" "Excuse me, could you help me with this task?" Hannah's story. Hannah went shopping for vegetables. She asked the shop assistant, "Could you please tell me which ones are fresh today?" The assistant helped her select the best vegetables. The phrase, "which ones are," is helpful when asking about options. For example, Which ones are on sale today? Which ones are suitable for beginners? Lucas's story. Lucas was attending a conference and wanted to network. He said politely, "It's a pleasure to meet you. Could you tell me more about your work?" The other person shared details, and Lucas made a new professional connection. The phrase, "It's a pleasure to meet you," is formal and polite. For example, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about your company. It's a pleasure to meet you in person." Rachel's story. Rachel was taking a bus in a busy city. She asked the driver, "Could you please let me know when we reach the main station?" The driver nodded, and Rachel got off at the correct stop. The phrase, "Could you please let me know," is practical for asking for information or updates. For example, "Could you please let me know when the package arrives?" "Could you please let me know the results?" Henry's story continued. Henry was at a restaurant and wanted to try a new dish. He asked the waiter, "Could you please recommend a popular dish here?" The waiter suggested the chef's special, and Henry enjoyed it. The phrase, "Could you please recommend," is both polite and useful when dining out. For example, "Could you please recommend a drink to go with this meal?" "Could you please recommend a dessert?" The phrase, "Could you please recommend a popular," is useful for asking advice politely. For example, "Could you please recommend a good hotel?" "Could you please recommend a local dish?" Here is another story about Olivia. She wanted to practice pronunciation with her husband. She said, "Let us practice these words together slowly." They repeated each word carefully, and their English improved. The phrase, "Let us practice," is useful for collaborative activities. For example, "Let us practice the exercises together." "Let us practice speaking in English." Next, we have Michael. He went to a museum and saw an exhibit he did not understand. He asked the guide, "Could you please explain the story behind this exhibit?" The guide provided detailed information, and Michael enjoyed it more. The phrase, "the story behind," is useful for explanations. For example, "Can you tell me the story behind this painting?" "Can you explain the story behind this building?" Now, let us hear about Emma. She was buying tickets for a concert. She asked politely, "Could you please tell me the available seats?" The clerk showed her the options, and she chose a good one. The phrase, "the available," is practical when making choices. For example, "What are the available options? Could you show me the available times?" Here is another story about Daniel. He wanted to surprise his wife with flowers. He said, "Could you please wrap these flowers nicely?" The florist wrapped them beautifully, and his wife was delighted. The phrase, "Could you please wrap," is helpful for polite requests. For example, "Could you please wrap this as a gift?" "Could you please wrap it carefully?" Next, we have Sophia. She was learning to swim. Her instructor said, "Take a deep breath and try slowly." Sophia followed the advice and improved her technique. The phrase, "take a deep breath," is common and useful for relaxation and focus. For example, "Take a deep breath before the exam." "Take a deep breath to calm down." Here is another example with Benjamin. He was at a bakery and asked, "Could you please give me a loaf of bread and 2 buns?" The baker packed them carefully, and Benjamin paid. The phrase, "2 buns," is useful when specifying quantity. For example, "I would like 3 apples and 1 orange. Can I get 4 cookies, please?" Next, we have Chloe. She was attending a seminar and wanted to ask a question. She said, "Excuse me, may I ask a question about this topic?" The speaker welcomed her, and she gained clarification. The phrase, "May I ask a question about," is polite and formal. For example, "May I ask a question about your presentation?" "May I ask a question about the homework?"